The night before the wedding was supposed to be peaceful. The village of Umodu moved with a soft, joyous excitement. Women pounding yam for the reception, men raising canopies near the church field, children rehearsing their dance steps under the moonlight. Everywhere people spoke her name with warmth, pride, and a bit of envy. Ngozi, the bride of destiny. Ngozi, the girl marrying Chidi, the rich architect from Enugu. Ngozi, whose smile could calm a thunderstorm. But inside her bedroom, where lantern light flickered against the mud-brown walls, Ngozi felt a strange heaviness settle over her chest. She sat at the edge of her bamboo bed, her hands cold, her heart pounding too loud for the silence of the room. Her wedding gown hung on the wooden wardrobe door, simple but elegant, sewn with pearls. Her mother had insisted she sleep early, yet sleep refused to come. It wasn't fear. It wasn't excitement. It was something else. A presence. At first, she thought it was the wind pressing through the window, but then she heard it, soft, faint, but unmistakable. A whisper. Her name carried like smoke on the breeze. Ngozi! She froze, her breath caught in her throat. She turned sharply, eyes scanning the room. Nothing moved. The shadows remained still. She swallowed. Who is there? Silence. Only the distant sound of crickets answered. She exhaled shakily and lay back on the bed, pulling her wrapper closer to her skin. Maybe it was stress. Tomorrow was her big day. Everyone expected perfection. The bride must not frown, must not stumble, must not disappoint the village. Maybe her mind was playing tricks. Her eyes slowly closed, until the whisper came again. Ngozi, don't marry him. She sat up instantly, her heart knocking violently against her ribs. This time the voice was clearer, low, familiar, almost sorrowful. It sounded close, too close, as though someone was standing right beside her bed. No, she whispered to herself, this cannot be happening. But the voice returned, colder now. You must not marry him. Ngozi jumped from the bed, grabbed her lantern, and rushed out of the room. Her feet carried her down the narrow hallway, past the kitchen, out into the compound. The night air wrapped around her like a wet cloth. The moon hung low, half hidden by drifting clouds. The compound was quiet, too quiet for a night filled with wedding preparations. She thought of waking her mother, but she knew Mama would laugh, dismiss it, and blame it on nerves. So instead, she walked to the small mango tree beside the kitchen hut. She sat on the stump beneath it, holding the lantern tightly as though it were a shield. She tried to calm her breathing. Maybe it was a dream. Maybe she imagined it. Ngozi closed her eyes. That was when she heard footsteps, slow, soft, approaching. Her eyes snapped open. She lifted the lantern. Who is there? She whispered. A figure stepped out from the shadow. A thin, elderly woman wrapped in a faded wrapper. Her hair was gray and her eyes glowed with the reflection of the lantern flame. Mama Urenma? Ngozi breathed, recognizing the old herbalist who lived at the edge of their village. The old woman nodded. My daughter, why are you outside at this hour? Tomorrow is your wedding. Ngozi hesitated. Mama, I heard something, a voice. It called my name. The old woman's expression didn't change, but something in her gaze sharpened. A voice? Inside your room? Ngozi nodded slowly. Shame burned in her stomach. What if she sounded mad? But Mama Urenma only walked closer, leaning slightly on her carved staff. Tell me exactly what you heard, Ngozi swallowed. It told me not to marry Chidi. Silence fell like a heavy curtain. For a long moment the old woman said nothing. She looked at Ngozi with a face that carried more pity than surprise. My daughter, she finally whispered. Voices like this do not come without reason. Ngozi felt her heart sink. But what does it mean? Is something wrong? Is something going to happen? Mama Urema sighed deeply, the weight of many secrets sitting in her breath. Tonight I felt a disturbance, a spirit not at peace. Ngozi shivered. A spirit? The old woman nodded. A warning spirit. Someone connected to you. Connected? How? Mama Urenma placed a wrinkled hand on her shoulder. Whispers do not come to the deaf. You heard it because the message is for you alone. Ngozi felt her knees weaken. She leaned against the mango tree. "But Chidi is a good man," she whispered desperately. "He loves me. Everyone says we are blessed. Why would a spirit warn me against him?" Mama Uranma shook her head slowly. "I cannot answer that yet. But heed this, child. Pay attention to the whisper. Spirits do not lie." Ngozi trembled, fear circling her heart like a tightening rope. The old woman turned to leave, but before she disappeared into the shadows, she said one last thing, something that sank into Ngozi's soul like a stone into a river. "Before dawn, the whisper will return, and this time, it will tell you the truth." Ngozi stood frozen, lantern shaking in her grip as the night closed in around her. Tomorrow was her wedding day, but tonight, something else had come for her. Ngozi did not return to her room immediately. She stood in the middle of the compound long after Mama Urenma disappeared into the night, her bare feet touching the cool sand, her mind spinning like a whirlwind. "Before dawn, the whisper will return." The words replayed in her head again and again, each repetition tightening her fear. The night suddenly felt thicker, as if someone had poured shadows over the entire village. Finally, she walked back into the house and closed her bedroom door behind her. The lantern flickered gently, casting trembling shapes across the walls. She sat on her bed, hugging her knees to her chest. "God, please," she whispered, "don't let anything ruin tomorrow." Her wedding day, a day she had dreamed of since childhood, a day her late father had prayed to witness, a day Chidi had spent months planning, pouring his heart and his savings into. What spirit would dare stand against that? But deep inside her, a small tremor repeated the question she feared to ask. What if the spirit wasn't the enemy? What if the whisper was trying to protect her? She shook the thought away. Chidi was gentle, respectful, generous. He treated her like she was made of glass. The entire village adored him. Even her mother often said God must have sent him with wings of favor. Ngozi wiped her eyes. She wouldn't let fear destroy everything. She lay back on the bed, but sleep refused to come. The lantern's glow felt weaker. The silence crept in like a visitor with no footsteps. Seconds passed. Minutes. Time stretched into something heavy and uncomfortable. Then it happened. A cold breeze slipped into the room, though the windows were shut tight. Ngozi's eyes flew open. The flame of the lantern bent violently to one side, then straightened, then went completely still. She held her breath, and then she heard it, a whisper. Soft, breathless, but clearer than before. "Ngozi," she sat up slowly. Her throat dried instantly. Her heart hammered in painful beats. Who are you?" she asked, her voice trembling. The whisper came again, closer, almost touching her ear. "Look at me." Her hands shook uncontrollably. She clutched the edge of the bed as the air grew colder. I can't see you," she whispered. "Look, at the mirror." Ngozi's eyes darted across the room. On the opposite wall, hanging above her small table, was the only mirror she owned, oval with a polished wooden frame Chidi had carved for her himself. Her stomach twisted. Slowly, she turned toward it. At first, she saw nothing but her reflection. Wide eyes, trembling lips, fear carved into her features. Then the lantern flickered, and another face appeared behind her. Ngozi choked back a scream. Her breath vanished. It was faint, like mist forming a human shape. Eyes, nose, mouth, but blurred around the edges. A woman's face, young, sad, watching her with unbearable sorrow. Ngozi scrambled backward on the bed. "Jesus, who are you?" The whisper responded, the voice coming not from the room but from the mirror itself. "You must not marry him." Ngozi shook her head furiously. "Why? What do you want from me?" The spirit's outline grew clearer. A soft, pale glow circled its head like the moon shining behind clouds. "He is not who you think." Ngozi tried to breathe, but her chest felt tight. "Chidi? No. Chidi would never harm me." The face in the mirror flickered, grief deepening in its cloudy eyes. "I once said the same." Ngozi froze. A numbness crawled down her spine. You know him?" The spirit lowered its gaze, as if carrying a weight too heavy to speak aloud. "He made a promise to me," it whispered. "A promise he broke." Ngozi clutched her chest. Promise? What promise? The spirit's lips parted, but before it could answer, a loud knock boomed on Ngozi's door. She jumped. Ngozi! Her mother's voice called urgently. What is going on in there? Why are you talking? Who are you shouting at? Ngozi's eyes shot back to the mirror. The face had vanished. Only her reflection remained, panting, terrified, drenched in cold sweat. Ngozi, Mama called again. Open this door. Ngozi didn't move at first. She felt pinned to the bed by fear. Finally, she stood on shaky legs and opened the door. Her mother stood there with a wrapper tied across her chest and sleep still in her eyes. Ngozi, are you all right? Ngozi swallowed. I just had a nightmare. Mama studied her face. Your eyes, why are you sweating like this? Her voice softened. My daughter, stop thinking too much. Tomorrow is your big day. The devil is trying to shake you. Ngozi nodded even though she didn't believe it. Her mother sighed. Try to sleep, Morning will come quickly. She closed the door and left. Slowly she turned back to the mirror. It was normal now. Innocent. Silent. But the whisper still lingered in her ears. A promise he broke. She crawled into her bed, covered herself completely with her wrapper, and squeezed her eyes shut. But even in the darkness, the spirit's face stayed with her. Young, sad, familiar in a way she could not understand. Ngozi didn't know when sleep finally came, but she knew one thing. When dawn arrived, she could no longer pretend nothing was wrong. Morning arrived too brightly for the darkness still hanging over Ngozi's heart. Roosters crowed from every corner of Umuodu. Drums thumped faintly in the distance, young men rehearsing for the wedding dance. Women's laughter floated from the backyard as they prepared pepper soup and jollof rice for the celebration. Everything felt normal, joyful, full of life. But inside Ngozi, there was a growing storm. She dressed slowly, her fingers trembling as she tied her wrapper. Every time she glanced at the mirror, she half expected the spirit's face to reappear. But the mirror showed only her pale, frightened reflection. Her mother burst into the room without knocking, excitement radiating from her like sunlight. My daughter, wake up. Today is the day the Lord has made. Your groom is already on his way from Enugu. Ngozi forced a smile, but Mama paused, studying her more closely. Ngozi, are you still frightened from the nightmare? Ngozi looked away. I'm fine, Mama. Mama placed a hand on her shoulder. A bride must not carry fear to her husband's house. Whatever it is, let it go. But how could she? A whisper had warned her. A spirit had shown itself in her mirror. A broken promise hung in the air like a curse. When Mama left the room to fetch the tailor, Ngozi exhaled shakily. She needed answers. She needed clarity. Fear alone could not guide her. There was only one person who might know more about the spirit that spoke to her last night. Mama Urenma. Ngozi slipped quietly out of the house, careful not to draw attention. The village paths were already buzzing with neighbors, carrying gifts and decorations. Greetings followed her. Our beautiful bride. Congratulations, Ngozi. But she only smiled weakly and kept walking. She headed toward the edge of Umudu, where the tall Iroko tree stood like a silent guardian. Beyond it lay a small hut made of clay and palm leaves. Mama Urenma's home. Ngozi hesitated at the doorway. The air felt cooler here, as if the tree's shadow swallowed heat. She pushed the curtain aside. Inside, the herbalist was grinding leaves in a clay bowl. She didn't look surprised to see Ngozi. I knew you would come, the old woman said quietly. Sit. Ngozi sat on the woven mat, rubbing her cold palms against her thighs. Mama, she began, voice shaky. The spirit came again. It showed itself to me. Mama Renma nodded slowly. Describe what you saw. Ngozi swallowed. It was a woman. Young. She looked sad, and she said something about a promise Chidi broke. The old woman sighed deeply, as if confirming a fear she already carried. I was afraid of this, she murmured. Ngozi leaned forward. Mama, please. What is happening? Why is a spirit warning me against my own husband-to-be? Mama Urenma reached for a small wooden box. She opened it carefully and pulled out an old brass ring tied to a thin string. She placed it between them. Do you know this ring? Ngozi shook her head. This, Mama Urenma said, Belonged to a girl from a nearby town. Her name was Amara. The name hit Ngozi like a small stone. It felt familiar. Why? Amara, she repeated softly. The old woman nodded. She was once Chidi's beloved. Ngozi's stomach dropped. That cannot be. Chidi never told me. Mama Urenma raised a hand. He would not, because her story is buried under silence. The hut seemed to grow colder. What happened to her? Ngozi whispered. The old woman stared into Ngozi's eyes, her own filled with a heavy sadness. Amara died 3 years ago. Ngozi felt her throat tighten. How? Illness? Mama Urema shook her head slowly. She died on the night she was supposed to marry Chidi. Ngozi's entire body stiffened. Marry Chidi? Her voice cracked. He was engaged before? Yes, the woman said. Amara and Chidi were deeply in love. He promised her his life, his loyalty, his heart, beneath the Iroko tree. Ngozi stared at the ring in shock. A promise he broke? Mama Urenma nodded. 2 days before the wedding, an argument broke out between them. Amara accused him of betrayal. He swore she misunderstood. Ngozi swallowed. Betrayal? What kind? Nobody knows, Mama Urenma replied. But that night, Amara ran out of her home weeping. A hunter later found her body near the riverbank. Ngozi gasped. She killed herself. No one is certain. Some said she slipped and drowned. Others whispered that her spirit lingered, restless, watching the man who broke her heart move on. Ngozi's skin prickled. And now, the woman continued, he is marrying you. Ngozi pressed a hand to her mouth. Tears pricked her eyes. Mama, are you saying Amara's spirit is warning me because Chidi killed her? The old woman shook her head. I do not know if he harmed her with his hands, but heartbreak can kill too, my child. Ngozi trembled. But why warn me? What does this have to do with me? Mama Urema looked at the ring again. Spirits do not warn without purpose. If Amara's soul is still trapped between worlds, it means something unfinished remains. Something tied to Chidi. Something dangerous. Ngozi felt the ground shift beneath her. Her heart raced painfully. What should I do? She whispered. My wedding is today. The old woman leaned forward and took her hand. Before she could answer, the door curtain flew open. A man sprinted into the compound, panting. Ngozi, your mother is looking everywhere for you. Chidi has arrived. He's waiting. Ngozi stood, frozen in place. Mama Urenma squeezed her hand tightly. Go, she whispered, but listen to me carefully. Ngozi's breath shook. What? Before you say I do, ask him about the promise he made under the Iroko tree. Ngozi's heart nearly stopped. And watch his eyes, the old woman added, for the truth hides there. The village square was glowing with celebration. Bright fabrics fluttered in the breeze. Women sang as they set up chairs, and the aroma of roasted goat and pepper soup filled the air. The church bell rang joyfully, echoing across Umodu like a call from heaven. But inside Ngozi's chest, fear coiled like a trapped snake. She stepped into her compound, and immediately a swarm of aunties surrounded her, adjusting her head tie, spraying perfume on her wrists, and praising her beauty. Ah, our bride is glowing. Chidi will faint when he sees you. Anne, see shape, see elegance. Ngozi forced a smile, but her thoughts were miles away. Under the Iroko tree, inside a mirror, and in the voice that whispered her name in the darkness. Her mother rushed forward, relief washing over her face. Ngozi, where did you go? I nearly lost my mind. I just needed air, Ngozi murmured. Mama grabbed her hand. No more disappearing. Everyone is waiting. Ngozi nodded weakly, and her mother led her toward the street where the wedding convoy was gathering. A band played fast-paced highlife music. Children danced and clapped around the cars decorated with ribbons. Then she saw him, Chidi, tall, handsome, dressed in a spotless white caftan embroidered with gold. His smile brightened the air. He walked toward her with open arms, his eyes glowing with love, or something that looked like love. Ngozi, he whispered when he reached her, my beautiful bride. He held her hands and warmth spread through her, but it didn't erase the cold fear inside. His smile faded slightly. Are you all right? You look shaken. Ngozi forced her lips upward. I'm fine. But as she looked into his eyes, Mama Urema's warning echoed. Watch his eyes, the truth hides there. Suddenly, Ngozi felt as if she were looking at a stranger. Chidi squeezed her hand. Let's go in, my love. He led her into the church where the choir was already singing a soft hymn. Guests filled the pews. Flowers lined the aisle. Everything looked perfect, dreamy, just as she had imagined since childhood. But as she walked down the aisle beside Chidi, Ngozi felt her chest tighten. Every step echoed with doubt. They reached the altar. The pastor smiled warmly and opened his Bible. We are gathered here today, he began, to join Chidi and Ngozi in holy matrimony. Ngozi swallowed hard, her eyes fixed on the floor. She tried to steady her breaths, but the whisper returned in her mind. You must not marry him. She lifted her gaze slowly, and her heart jerked. At the back of the church, someone was standing there. A woman, dressed in a white gown, pale, still, watching her. Ngozi blinked. The woman flickered, like smoke. A chill ran down her spine. Amara, the church continued as normal. Everyone laughing, singing, smiling. Only Ngozi saw the ghostly figure at the back. Chidi glanced at her. Ngozi, breathe. You're trembling. She quickly looked away. I'm okay. But she wasn't. Not when a dead woman was watching her wedding. The pastor finally reached the vows. Chidi, he said, do you take Ngozi to be your lawfully wedded wife? Ngozi stared at Chidi as he smiled confidently. I do. His voice was steady. Too steady. Her pulse raced. Now, Ngozi, the pastor said warmly, do you? Ngozi's heart thundered. This was the moment. Before she could speak, she turned to Chidi and whispered, barely audible, Chidi, what promise did you make under the Iroko tree? His entire body stiffened. The smile vanished. His eyes, those beautiful, gentle eyes, darkened suddenly like clouds covering the sun. What? He whispered sharply. Ngozi swallowed. The promise you made to Amara. Chidi's pupils shrank. The entire church blurred around him. He stared at Ngozi as if she had slapped him. How do you know that name? His voice trembled with something she had never heard before. Fear. Ngozi's breath grew shallow. Tell me the truth, Chidi. What happened to her? The pastor paused, confused. Guests shifted in their seats. Murmurs rose like ripples through the church. Chidi's jaw tightened. Sweat formed on his forehead. I don't want to talk about this here, he hissed. Then when? Ngozi whispered. After I become your wife? Chidi's face hardened, but beneath it, she saw panic. Real panic. She's gone, he said in a low voice. She died, that's all. Ngozi shook her head. That's not all. A cold wind brushed her arm. She turned. Amara's ghost now stood closer, her transparent face filled with anguish. Ngozi's heart nearly stopped. She faced Chidi again. Her voice held a trembling strength. Chidi, did you betray her? His jaw clenched painfully tight. Enough, he whispered. This is not the time. Then tell me, Ngozi demanded. Look me in the eyes and tell me you kept your promise. Silence swallowed the church. The guests leaned forward. Chidi looked at her and could not speak. And in that silence, Ngozi heard Amara's whisper echo through the church. Soft, sad, and undeniable. Now you see the truth? Ngozi stepped back from the altar, her heart breaking, her legs trembling, her wedding collapsing around her. She whispered one devastating word. No. Gasps exploded across the church. Some women clutched their wrappers. Men leaned forward, confused. The choir fell silent, their hymn dying in their throats. Ngozi stepped away from the altar, her breath unsteady, her eyes locked on Chidi's face. The pastor blinked rapidly, unsure what to do. My daughter, do you understand what you... But Chidi moved first. He reached for her arm. Ngozi, stop this. She pulled away sharply. Don't touch me. His face tightened, frustration boiling under the surface. We can talk outside, not here, not in front of everyone. Ngozi shook her head. If I walk out with you, you'll twist the truth or hide it again. I'm not going anywhere. Murmurs grew louder. Guests shifted nervously. Some aunties shouted, Is this drama part of the ceremony? Chai, this girl has disgraced her family. What happened to the groom? Chidi's mother stood from her seat, frowning deeply. Chidi, what is happening? Chidi closed his eyes as if battling something inside. When he opened them again, his voice was too calm. Ngozi is nervous. She's overwhelmed. She's saying things that... Stop lying, she cut in. His jaw clenched. Ngozi felt Amara's spirit behind her, the faint chill brushing her neck. The ghost stood close, almost touching her shoulder, urging her. Tell them, Ngozi said, swallowing hard, about Amara. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. Chidi's face drained of color. His hands shook slightly, though he hid them behind his back. His mother frowned at him. Who is Amara? A shiver of tension swept through the church. Chidi's lips trembled. Amara was someone I knew, a long time ago. It has nothing to do with today. Ngozi's eyes stung. You were going to marry her. More murmurs. Chidi's mother's eyes widened. What? Chidi rubbed his face in frustration. It was years ago. It doesn't matter anymore. Ngozi shook her head. It matters if her spirit is not at peace. The pastor blinked hard. Her spirit? Ngozi took a shaky breath. I saw her last night. She came to me. She warned me not to marry him. Whispers turned into a storm. Spirit qua? The bride done crazo. No, this girl is under attack. But Chidi wasn't shocked by that claim. He was terrified, truly terrified. His shoulders fell as though something heavy had finally defeated him. He took a deep, trembling breath. Then, with a voice barely above a whisper, he said, I never wanted things to end the way they did. The church froze. Ngozi stared at him. So you admit it? He sank slowly to the first pew, his voice cracking. I loved Amara. I did. More than anything. We planned everything. We promised forever. But, he looked up, pain carved into his expression. My family refused her. Ngozi blinked. Why? Chidi clenched his fists. They said she was cursed, that her lineage was poor, that she would bring misfortune. They threatened to disown me. His mother gasped loudly. Chidi, how dare you? Don't pretend, he snapped, surprising even himself. You told me a woman like Amara wasn't fit for our family. You forced me to choose, family or her. His mother turned red, her mouth opening and closing soundlessly. Chidi bowed his head. I chose my family. Ngozi's heart cracked. Chidi continued, voice raw. Amara begged me. She cried. She said I promised her under the Iroko tree that I would marry her no matter what, that I would protect her. He paused, voice shaking. But I broke that promise. I left her. Ngozi spoke softly, trembling. And she died. Chidi's eyes filled with tears. 3 days before the wedding, they said she slipped into the river. But I've never believed that. His voice cracked further. I think I killed her with heartbreak. Silence spread through the church like spilled oil. Some women wiped their eyes. Others shook their heads pitifully. Chidi's mother stood stiff, unable to speak. Ngozi took a step forward, her voice trembling. Why didn't you tell me? Chidi looked at her helplessly. Because I wanted a fresh start. Because I didn't want to lose you too. Ngozi's chest tightened painfully. You should have trusted me. Tears spilled from his eyes. I was afraid the past would ruin everything. Ngozi shook her head slowly. The past didn't ruin anything, Chidi. You did. A loud sob escaped him. He reached for her again, but she stepped backward. Amara's spirit flickered behind her, sadness softening into something like acceptance. Ngozi wiped her tears with a trembling hand. Chidi, she whispered, you broke a woman until death followed her. I cannot stand beside you at the altar and pretend that love is enough for us. Chidi fell to his knees. Please, Ngozi, don't do this. She closed her eyes. I already have. She turned away from him. The pastor called her name gently, but she didn't look back. As Ngozi walked down the aisle, the ghost of Amara walked beside her quietly, her presence no longer heavy and sorrowful, but lighter, almost peaceful. For the first time, Ngozi felt the whisper fade, not because the story was over, but because the hardest truth had finally been spoken. Ngozi did not stop walking until she stepped out of the church and felt the open air hit her face. The brightness of the afternoon sun blended with the blur of tears in her eyes. The once celebratory drums had fallen silent. Even the birds perched on the mango tree seemed to pause, watching her. Villagers whispered as she passed, "Huh? She canceled the wedding? Spirit matter? Is that possible? So Chidi had a past like that?" But Ngozi kept walking, her breath shaking, each step carrying the weight of 1,000 emotions. Fear, grief, guilt, freedom. Behind her, footsteps followed softly. She knew without turning that it wasn't Chidi. It was Amara, or rather, what remained of her. Ngozi finally stopped under the shade of the large udala tree near the edge of the village. She turned slowly. Amara's ghost stood there, not flickering now, but clearer, more whole. Her white gown glowed in the dust-speckled sunlight, her eyes soft and sad but no longer tormented. For the first time, Ngozi truly saw her. She wasn't a vengeful spirit. She wasn't a monster. She was a young woman whose heart had been broken beyond repair. Ngozi swallowed. "I did what you wanted." Amara shook her head gently, voice soft as the breeze. "No, you did what was right." Ngozi felt her throat tighten. "I don't understand." The ghost stepped closer, her presence no longer cold. "My spirit was never angry with you," she said. "You did nothing wrong, but I could not bear to see another woman walk blindly into the same pain that destroyed me." Ngozi blinked tears away. "I'm so sorry for what happened to you." A faint, sad smile appeared on Amara's face. "I did not want him hurt. I only wanted the truth to be seen." Ngozi hesitated. "Why now? Why appear to me and not someone else?" The ghost lifted her eyes toward the sky, as if searching for words. "Because you carry a heart that listens. Spirits speak, but not everyone hears." Ngozi looked down, overwhelmed. Amara's ghost drifted a little closer. "Thank you," she whispered. "You have allowed me to let go." Ngozi's eyes widened. "Does that mean you can finally rest?" The spirit nodded faintly. "But something remains unfinished." Ngozi tensed. "What is it?" Amara looked toward the church in the distance, where murmurs and raised voices echoed faintly. "Chidi." Ngozi bit her lip. "I don't hate him, but I can't be with someone who hides truths like that." Amara shook her head. "This is not about marriage. It is about forgiveness." Ngozi inhaled sharply. "Forgiveness? For what he did to you?" The ghost's expression softened. "He was weak, not wicked. Fear misled him. Pressure crushed him. I loved him, but the world around him killed our love." Ngozi felt her eyes sting again. "If you still carry anger for him," Amara continued, "I cannot leave this world. Forgiveness must be spoken. By you and by me." Ngozi pressed a hand to her chest. "I don't know if I can." Amara gave her a gentle, almost human smile. "You are stronger than I was." For a moment, the two women, one living, one long dead, stood in silence. Ngozi finally nodded. "Then I will face him." Amara closed her eyes in relief, her form shimmering like dew in sunlight. Ngozi turned back toward the church, her steps determined but trembling. When she re-entered the compound, she found a crowd gathered outside. Chidi's mother was wailing, partly from shame, partly from shock. Guests whispered in clusters. The pastor stood by the door trying to calm people. And Chidi, he was sitting on the church steps, head in his hands, shoulders shaking. Ngozi approached him slowly. He looked up at her, his eyes red and swollen. "Ngozi, please, I don't know what to say. I've ruined everything. I've ruined myself." She sat beside him quietly. Silence stretched between them before Ngozi whispered, "You broke someone who loved you." Chidi's breath cracked. "I know. God knows I've carried that guilt every day." Ngozi looked at him, really looked at him. He wasn't a monster. He wasn't heartless. He was a man crushed by his own cowardice. But pain caused through fear is still pain. "Amara is here," Ngozi whispered. Chidi's entire body jolted. He stared at her, panic rising in his chest. "You can see her? Now?" Ngozi nodded. "She's listening." Chidi's lips trembled. "Please, tell her I'm sorry. Tell her I would give anything, anything to take back what I did." Ngozi took a deep breath. Then she turned slightly. though only she could see the ghost standing behind them. Amara, she said softly, do you want to speak to him? For a moment, the air grew still. Amara's ghost moved forward, toward Chidi. She knelt down beside him, her hand hovering inches from his shoulder. But this time her voice wasn't a whisper. It was clear, gentle, filled with release. Chidi, Chidi gasped, tears breaking free. Amara, forgive me, please. The spirit smiled sadly. I forgave you long ago. It was you who never forgave yourself. Chidi sobbed openly, collapsing into himself. Amara touched the air near his cheek, almost a caress. Let the past release you. Let me go. Her form began to shimmer, growing lighter, brighter, transparent. Ngozi's eyes widened. Amara! The ghost turned to her one last time. Thank you, Ngozi. Live with truth. Live with your whole heart. Her image dissolved into a soft white glow, then faded completely. Gone. Finally at peace. Chidi knelt there sobbing. Ngozi placed a hand on his shoulder, not as a bride, but as a human offering comfort. Neither of them noticed the sun breaking through the clouds above. For a long moment, neither Ngozi nor Chidi moved. The church compound slowly emptied as guests drifted away, unsure what to say or how to react to the ruined ceremony. The music had stopped completely. Decorations fluttered sadly in the wind, as if mourning the celebration that never came. But deep within Ngozi, something felt strangely lighter. Not because the pain was gone, far from it, but because the truth had finally been spoken. Because a spirit had found peace. Because a lie had been broken before it became a marriage. Chidi sat on the steps, wiping his eyes like a child who had cried himself empty. His mother stood nearby, her earlier pride shattered into guilty silence. She looked older suddenly, as though the truth had aged her in a day. Ngozi, Chidi whispered, voice hoarse, I don't expect you to forgive me, or to come back to me. I don't deserve either. Ngozi sat beside him, her wrapper brushing the dirt on the step. Chidi, she said softly, you're not the only one who made mistakes. He looked at her in disbelief. What mistake did you make? Ngozi exhaled shakily. I ignored my spirit. I doubted my own heart. I was so focused on the wedding, the clothes, the guests, the celebration, that I forgot the marriage mattered more. Chidi lowered his head. I ruined everything. No, Ngozi said. Your past did, and the silence around it. His mother approached slowly. Ngozi, my daughter, please do not judge Chidi too harshly. We only wanted what was best for him. Ngozi met her gaze. Mama, you cost your son happiness. Maybe you didn't push Amara into the river, but you pushed her into despair. Chidi's mother flinched. Tears filled her eyes. I know, and I will carry that guilt. Ngozi nodded but said nothing more. Some wounds required time, others required silence. A breeze swept across the compound. The scent of dust and wilting flowers filled the air. Somewhere in the distance, a drumbeat resumed, the village resuming life, trying to move forward. Chidi stood slowly, his legs weak. Ngozi, can we talk? Somewhere quiet? She hesitated, then nodded. Just talk. They walked to the back of the church, where an old cashew tree provided shade. The ground was scattered with fallen yellow fruit. Birds chirped above them, unaware of the human pain beneath their branches. Chidi leaned against the trunk, his hands shaking. I want you to know something. Ngozi waited. I didn't pursue you to replace Amara, he said. I did love you. I love you still. But I was afraid to tell you about her. I thought if I opened that door, I would lose you. Ngozi closed her eyes. You lost me because you hid it, not because of what happened. He nodded slowly, tears filling his eyes again. I see that now. They stood in silence for a while. Only the rustling leaves spoke. Then Ngozi turned to him gently. Chidi, if you truly want to honor Amara, you must become better. Not for me, not for her, for yourself. Chidi wiped his face. I want to. Ngozi sighed softly. Good, because healing is not a moment. It's a long journey. His voice cracked. And us? Is there any hope? Ngozi looked at him with an honesty that hurt them both. Chidi, I don't hate you, but I cannot marry you. Not now. Not like this. Love needs truth. Love needs courage. And we have to rebuild both. Chidi nodded, though pain flashed across his face. I understand. She placed a hand on his shoulder, gentle but firm. We need time apart. You need to face your guilt, your family, and your own heart. And I need to return to myself, to my peace. His breath trembled. If time leads us back together, would you accept it? Ngozi smiled sadly. If destiny wants us together, it won't require hiding. But if it doesn't, then at least we parted with truth. A moment of calm settled between them. No anger, no shouting, just acceptance. Then something unexpected happened. A soft wind circled them, warm and tender, unlike the cold breeze that once carried Amara's whisper. It felt like a blessing, a release. Ngozi looked up. For a split second, she saw a faint shimmer in the sunlight, like a woman in a white gown smiling peacefully before dissolving into the air. Amara had left this world. At last. Ngozi's heart felt both heavy and free. She turned to Chidi. You will be fine, he nodded slowly. And you will be more than fine. They walked back toward the village path, not as lovers, not as enemies, but as two people whose lives had crossed at a point of pain and truth. When they reached the fork in the road, one path leading to Ngozi's home, the other toward Chidi's car, they stopped. This is where we go separate ways, Ngozi whispered. Chidi bowed his head. Thank you for freeing her and freeing me. Ngozi managed a small smile. May your next promise be kept. With that, she turned and walked away. Her steps were slow at first, but as she moved down the path, her heart grew lighter with each pace. She felt the village watching her, but she held her head high. She was not a runaway bride. She was a woman who chose truth over ceremony, peace over fear, and her future over her reputation. Behind her, the whisper that had haunted her since last night faded completely. Silent, satisfied, gone. And as Ngozi reached her home, she felt something new blooming in her chest. Hope, not for a wedding, but for a life built on honesty, freedom, and courage. The whisper before the wedding had saved her, and she would never forget it.